What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the More Life Podcast. My name is Bart, if you are new around here. And we're going to jump right into it. This is our year in review. We've had quite a crazy year in 2021. There's been lots of changes. And maybe you've been going through some changes yourself. Maybe this year was a good year where you kind of were able to jump out of the slum of the heat of the pandemic right in the middle there. Or maybe you were somebody who thrived and a lot of things happened and changed and you had to adapt and change. But that's what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to get to it in just one second. But first, if you're new around here and if you have not yet listened to us before, please give us a like and a follow. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, or if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe there as well, so you can get all of the other episodes, and you can go back and listen to all the amazing guests that we've had on the show in this past year specifically, and we're now in season 5. In 2021, we had season 4 and 5, so there's great guests in both seasons. We're really hitting our stride with the podcast, and I'm super excited about it. And we're going to talk about the podcast in a little bit. But to get things kicked off proper, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened in the business in its entirety. The biggest thing that I think we've seen in the company, a creative partner, the marketing agency that we run, which is the primary business that I run and operate, is our growth. So we're seeing the biggest jump in sales revenue that we've ever seen, and we've also, we're able to see a lot of growth in our team, in our staff, in our process. And I want to break it down a little bit. And the first thing I want to talk about is the development side of things. And I think that's super important and key if you're somebody who is a creative, whether you're freelance, or if you're somebody who's looking to level up, whether you're working a 9 to 5 in your industry, in your department, whatever it may be. Leveling up takes a foundation. You have to have a strong foundation. And I wouldn't say that I had a perfect or a great one. In fact, I would say even still, I'm looking to improve that a lot, and what's going to happen in 2022. But we really, or I guess myself specifically, at the beginning of 2022, it was just me. We had just lost the only contracted employee I had. And it kind of was a great thing that happened. It forced me to kind of focus more on what I wanted this to be, instead of trying to run and gun with one person. I'm super thankful for Faria, who was with us for a number of months and really helped me become a better leader. And one of the first things I had to do in the new year was to kind of take a look at my self-development and what I was intaking. And that's what a big part is going to be, right? Like, what are you feeding yourself to allow you to perform at your peak or your optimal status? For me, it was, getting some knowledge in habits, knowledge in leadership, knowledge in my own personal development. I read a couple books. This is marketing. I read the Atomic Habits, James Clear. And there's certain things that you just needed to set right. And I think the beginning of a year is such a cool and great way to try to bring all those things together, because it feels like a fresh start. It's taken me a long time to stop trying to set these goals and then have no plan to reach them. I used to set SMART goals. That was what I was used to doing. Trying to find out what things could I do to make those happen, and it seemed a lot harder. And instead, I now take the approach after, reading books like Atomic Habit. What habits or routines do I need to develop so that I can, achieve the things that I want to achieve? It's all about what your intentions are and what you actually do, and rectifying those two things. How do we reconcile what I want to do as my new habit and what actually happens? Do I need to change certain behaviors? Do I need to change certain trigger points for me to adapt and grow? Or is it something where I need to scale my expectations a little bit closer to what is happening in reality? And those things are super key if no matter what you're trying to do in the future. It's kind of that self-awareness, understanding who you are, understanding how you behave and how your body and your mind are actually super important to take care of if you want to, perform, if you want to get those deliverables out, if you want to feel content at a year end like this year. This is probably the very few times where I feel not fully happy, but content. Like I'm like, okay, we were able to set out some bigger ideas and work backwards with some of the habits and routines to kind of develop those things and kind of take a little bit of a step back to take bigger steps forward. And I think that's very, very key for anyone who's looking to grow anything. Sometimes you have to propagate a plant or transplant it into a different pot. Sometimes you got to trim or prune something to allow it to grow further, to allow it to grow bigger. There was also professional development that I took, not just personal, but also professional development. In the first quarter of 2021, I think I spoke about this on another episode called Niching Down. We enlisted a consultancy group. I was already a part of a roundtable with a really good friend of mine, one of the smartest business owners that I know in marketing, David Shrine of the Campaign Donut Company and the Blocks Agency in Arizona. And we had done a lot of work. I don't think I could have got my business where it was or through 2020 without that mastermind type group where everyone brought an idea. Dave would share some insights. He was many steps ahead of other people in the group, and he was able to kind of just clarify and shed light on how to structure, how to lead, how to operate. And that was paramount. And the next chapter of that was for me to try the next level of my own organization or my own disorganization, and kind of bring these, ideas all in sync. I'm very much a dreamer more than a builder, but I love building. So I'm both but I'm definitely more a dreamer. I'm living in my head, and I can see it in my head way more than I can see it in real life. And it would take more practice or discipline, all the things, right, to actually actualize those things in reality. So we took a bit of a different approach. We took, a step away from the roundtables because they were very helpful for where I was. But I knew I'd probably take a little step back and maybe focus a little bit more on the organization itself, or it's just me, the organization of one, so that we could potentially grow this into something a little bit more robust, and so that I didn't have to use so much of my valuable time, limited time and energy trying to switch hats and do many different things. So we enlisted a new company called Ditto. They're a consultancy firm that help companies structure all their SOP, systems and processes. They help structure your workflow and funnel internally and externally to get you the optimal performance, right, that you're looking for. At the end of the day, most people who are listening to this podcast, other than people who are listening because it's me and they like me personally and they know me, most people who listen to this podcast are people who are also trying to develop these types of skills. They're also trying to develop and grow something bigger than themselves. So we took a step back, I would say, and kind of looked under the hood before, fueling it up with gas and gunning it. You gotta do a little bit of a tune-up. And Marquis Murray and his team at Ditto, they did a great job at asking us tough questions about what exactly is happening in the business currently, where we would like to see the business in 6 months, and how they can help with systems to develop a pathway for us. And that was very huge as well. And you can hear a little bit more about that in the other podcast episode that I done called Niching Down. So we did a lot of work to develop that. And then towards the middle of the year, that's when we started to hire once I felt comfortable, because that was about a 3-month process working with Marquis and Ditto. We found ourselves in a place that we could hire, and I felt comfortable that, if I were to hire somebody and if they were to come on, that I could do a good job of leading them, that it wouldn't be so chaotic that I couldn't manage or keep up. And that was huge, being able to do those type of things, being able to have proper interviews. Again, a great skill I learned from Dave Shrine, but I wasn't ready systematically yet to use a lot of the stuff that Dave was teaching me for the past 3 years before I met Marquis. Marquis kind of showed me how I can utilize systems to actually get the stuff Dave was talking about done. And that was kind of me being the bottleneck, being more of somebody up here in my mind and not actuating, like I'm not actually doing the stuff Dave is telling me because I didn't have a system or a clear path forward. So we started to hire somebody, and I used all the methods and tools that Dave showed me to run an interview, to find clients, or to find potential candidates, and to go through that. And that was huge. I thought I could hire or replace the person that used to work for me with one person, and I kind of decided to go all out, and we hired 4 people in the summer of 2021. So we hired a designer, a marketing operations assistant, a project manager, and a developer for our web design. So we have a solid core group of people that we were able to help onboard easily through some of the stuff we learned with Ditto, make them feel acclimatized to what's happening here at Creative Partner. And that's probably one of the biggest, successes I can say is the team that we've built. In 2021, we've built a team of people who understand each other, who work together, who communicate clearly, who solve problems together. And no one is, permanent full-time or anything like that. We're getting there. But I feel like this was a great foundational year for us. And because of some of the things I learned along the way, we're now developing these individuals into being people who care about the business, who feel like they are supported, into people who are growing with us and can maybe see a future with us. Nothing is forever, I understand that. But at least for the time being, it's great to have people who kind of get it, who just kind of get it. So that was really good. Like I mentioned before, we niched down heavily by the end of the summer. Once we had everybody kind of onboarded, we started talking about, okay, who are we going to be in the future? And these were part of the conversations that I had with Marquis all the way back in March of the year. And finally in August, we were able to roll them out. And we did a lot of work in research. We did a lot of work in competitor analysis and market analysis, and kind of see what's the market saying and where do we kind of fit in with all of this, because there is a lot happening online. So for you to make a buck, or for you to make, tens of thousands of bucks, it takes a lot of determination. And that's not lost on me at all, how hard I've worked to get here. That's something that I think is really cool. If someone were to tell me even a year ago that we'd be a team of five plus, because we do have a video editor and an audio engineer editor who edits the podcast and do all the videos for our reels for the podcast. So really, you're talking about 6-7 of us who are always in constant communication and moving the needle forward. I would say that's impossible. There's no way. How could we do all of that? And I mentioned at the top of this episode that, this is the greatest sales revenue year I've ever had. And this is year 4 of the company. We started in 2017. I wish I could say that it was the greatest personal financial gain I've had. It's not. But that's the cost of operation. And so now we have the luxury of talking about that in a way that's more healthy. I'm okay, keeping my salary very low as we build the team, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Just because it helps with so much having all these different people involved. And that's something that's very crucial. I think if we do these things in the right steps, when the influx comes of business, of further growth, that's going to be something that's going to be an advantage to us because we have a lot of these things locked in place, systems, protocols, tools, all these things are locked in. So now we're just talking with the bookkeeper, keeping operation expenses down. How do we manage our budget properly and appropriately so that we're meeting our fiscal goals as well? Because it can't always be, just about individuals and all that type of stuff. It's good, but at the end of the day, this is a business, right? And I know anyone who is freelancing or trying to build something, at the end of the day, this is a business. You're trying to support your family. The people that work with me, my teams, are trying to support themselves, their families, their endeavors. I'm not blind to that fact. So the more profitable the business is, overall, the better it is for everyone. And that's just going to be huge. This year, we also worked with quite a few amazing clients. I really have to say, I'm so shocked at how well this year has turned out with some of the clientele that we've been able to work with. Honorable mentions, obviously, go towards, Homeless Health Peel, organization in Peel. We were able to help them out with some marketing strategy and a website. And these guys are frontline nurses. These are nurses who want to volunteer or work with homeless to provide free healthcare in the city of Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon. Huge. I'm super proud of that type of stuff. We worked with marketing clients and nonprofit groups, a church group called Village, the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. We work with Brandon Gonez and the Gonez media team, a prominent star coming up right now with a lot of media and news capabilities. So that's been a very big plus for us, being able to work in the space where we're working with notable and people, we're working with clientele that are excited to work with us as well. So that's something that, it makes me feel really good because when you're starting out, you don't know how it's all going to go. And really, you're thinking, I got to do all of this. And how do I make all of this work? And I got to carry all of this. But when you start to see, okay, if I share the load, but I also, work really hard at sales, which is kind of what I do now. I'm the sales guy. Until we can hire somebody to do sales, I'm the one who prospects and closes deals, and the team basically take it from there. So that's a huge, comfort, understanding that that's something that we were able to accomplish and see come to life. If you're just starting out, Dave Shrine, again, another one of those great lessons he taught me, the first year you're just trying to survive. Year 2, you're making all the mistakes. And year 3 is when you find I'm not going to make those mistakes, and I'm going to start, doing the things that I want to do to get the outcome that I want. And I feel that's where we're at right now. We're kind of in that year 3, 4, maybe it took us a little bit longer to get there, in terms of figuring out all the wrong things we should have not done and doing the things that are probably the most profitable and best for our company. And in doing so, that's how we got the better clients, is because we focused on doing less things, but doing them more effectively and better with greater results. So if you're just starting out, take courage, know that you're not alone and that it does take a lot of effort. It does take a lot of grit to get through that part because it's inevitable. You will need to figure out how to just make money to survive if you're just plunging in full time into freelance work or into a business. And then you're probably going to go through a period of doing the stuff you're not supposed to do. And that's part of the process. I'm a big fan of process. I love process because it means that you are eventually going to see a result, unless you are stubborn and don't want to change. you're going to see some results. You, to the degree of your compliance fee and understanding, to the degree is the degree that you'll actually see the results. So that's really cool with the business, the people, the staff, our niche, some of our marketing stuff that we've done, working towards that, writing articles, being featured on different podcasts and shows. Those were huge in 2021. The podcast, which is what you're listening to right now, is kind of like the first brainchild of the company. The company centers around the agency, but the first thing that we want to do after that with a podcast as a resource, kind of helping people who are trying to figure out how to do this. And there's other things that are going to come out in the future in terms of like a course and being featured on different platforms as other parts of that. But the hub is what pays for everything is the agency. So the podcast, another stellar year in terms of our guests. This is something that I'm proud of, and I wish more people knew about because it's such a good resource. The caliber of people and the information that has been on here, it blows my mind. I always knew I had a pretty strong Rolodex or a notebook of people, like contacts, in your phone. But being able to tap into some of them and meet new people online and get everybody to come on a call and to talk to me for an hour and share some insights, that was really big for, the audience. They got to benefit from people that are way smarter than me, that have done way more than me, that have accomplished way more than me. And I'm just lucky and thankful to be in the room. Season 5, we had Jalen Nelson. He's a rock star influencer. I think when I saw him on the podcast, he was at like 60 or 70,000. I think he's at 130,000 people on Instagram. We had Jessica Wellman. She was the former creative director of Shadowline magazine. Sophie Taylor running a crazy agency, 6-figure plus, working with amazing luxury beauty and wellness brands. Daniel Lewis of, Daniel's Tea, and now the Chai Bar. These are such great people to have and learn from, who have done great work in different areas of business. We even had Aaron Prothro, one of the first Black brewmasters or breweries owned by a Black person in the GTA. So the guests and the information and the lessons learned, I think we have done such a great job. The podcast does not get the viewership that it deserves at all. At all. I wish more people listened, watched, subscribed. That's something we're going to focus more on how we deliver content, how we share content, how we make it more tangible and relatable, and less static. And I think that's a disservice this is just me personally talking, to myself. We're friends here, right, guys? We're friends. I think I can do a better job at promoting the caliber of guests that we get on this show. And that's something I hope to do in the new year is kind of hone in on how do we talk about the show? Because I genuinely believe if people start to listen to this, they'd be like, oh, this is a gem of a podcast, not because of me or anything that I've done, but just the different voices, cultures, background, ethnicities, races, sex, all that type of stuff. They have such a unique but similar experience, and we are able to talk through the process, the upbringing, talk through the execution, the deliverables, talk through the success and the failures. That's huge. I think that's going to be something that, to look out for. We're now doing, I think we're doing like 300 downloads a month. I'd love to see that 500 or 1,000 downloads a month. That'd be huge for us to be able to get something like that on the podcast, just because the guests are so good. And we have some really good ones coming up. I can't lie. 2022, we have Ashley Ulmer, another absolute gem in terms of the work and the caliber that she's doing. So these are things that I'm super proud of, even though I know it's not exactly where I would want it to be. And we're talking about that internally, about how do we solve some of these problems. Right now, we got a little bit of an issue with Instagram on the podcast Instagram account, because it does not want to show our reels, and we can't post reels. And our video editor, Raquel, is so talented at making these reels. Which I know would help grow the following and get more awareness out. So we're working on that. If anyone knows anyone who works at Meta or at Facebook or at Instagram or whatever it's called, hit me up, because I need some help with my account to get it in the right place. That's kind of where we're at, with the agency, with the podcast. We still have another third business we're waiting to launch. We're just waiting for the right time. It's a clothing brand, but it's part of a fund that would help Black entrepreneurs, which is something, again, that I'm super honored and proud to be a part of. So we're just waiting on the right time. Timing is super key, and you can't over leverage yourself. I have responsibilities. I have a family. I have 6-7 people who wait for me every 2 weeks to get them, a check. So there's a lot of balancing there, but I think when the right time presents itself, we have something that I think people are going to absolutely gobble up. We just don't want to shoot too fast. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to jump the gun and it fall on deaf ears. I think as everything grows, we now have a better platform and better resources to talk with people about, systemic racism and what the Black experience is, and how do we change the narrative and the perspective, and talk about the rise, talk about the beauty within the experience itself. So that's a little tidbit. Hopefully comes out 2022. We already got partnerships. We already have, that's like a already packaged, done deal, just waiting for the moment where it's right, and it's not going to clash with all the other stuff that we're doing and overbear us with capacity and work-wise. Those three things are the main components right now. Like I said, we are planning a course for 2022, talking about agency development, and that's also something that's coming up in the future. We have to evolve and we have to grow, and I think courses have been for quite some time now very effective tool to share knowledge. And I love to talk. I love to share knowledge. I love to, read books and share what I'm reading and what I'm learning. And so this course, I think, will be very helpful to people who are starting out and they want to build what they're building into an agency. Those of them who like agency lifestyle and what that means in the modern age, of the 2022 age. I've been doing this now for 4 years, and it's different. Social is different. The internet is different. How we consume. The pandemic also intensified everything. LinkedIn is rising like crazy. TikTok has exploded. It's a different world out there. So building an agency and the tools available to you is so unique and so powerful. You just have to know how to harness it. And I think that's something that we're going to workshop in building. So next year, 2022, I think it's going to be a monster year. This is the year that I think I've been waiting for since 2017 when we first started. Being somewhere in a place like we are right now, where I feel like we're just about there, where we can feel the anticipation of, okay, we just need, certain things to line up correctly, and we're going to be flowing in a rhythm that is so much more natural and comfortable for us. So we're in the place now where we're setting goals. And again, we're doing some of the same stuff we did last year. We're revisiting the how do we do less and how do we do it better. That's, the extra junk stuff, it creeps in. It really does. Let's do this and let's do that, and you see something else happen and you're like, oh, let's do this reactionary stuff. And that's the stuff that slows down the growth of your business. You have to keep the main thing. You have to keep what is most important to you locked and center focus. Otherwise, you dilute the potency of your essence, of your brand, of your opportunity to capitalize. So these are things that are so important. We're diving deeper into our niche. We talked about this, like I mentioned in our previous podcast called Niching Down. We service and look to service commercial construction, interior designers in the commercial space, and offering them marketing tools and assets that get them the results that they've been looking for. So when you're planning for 2022, when you're thinking about the future, you have to have an idea. You also have to have a plan. Like I mentioned, intentions, goal settings, habits, all these things work together. They're not mutually exclusive. I don't think you can be successful in something if you're not necessarily taking time to account or take record of what you're doing, and does it need to be adjusted or changed to see the results that you're looking in. So we're deepening our niche. We're deepening in our marketing. Maria, our marketing operations administrator, is so talented. She is very, very, very smart with doing our deep dive analysis and our marketing analysis, and how do we get the best bang for our every keyword. And we're just trying to utilize her talents and her skill set to the best of her abilities for the maximizing of the bottom line of the company. And we're changing some things already, and that's the kind of pace that we live in, where every 6 months we're like reassessing, trimming the fat, getting back to our core values. Because like I said, if you take your hand off the wheel, the car starts to drift. And that's there's a leader, that used to say that vision leaks. And I think that's true for core values. Your core values, it leaks. It's a bucket that leaks always, not by anyone's fault or by anyone's design. That's just the fact. So you're constantly having to realign and keep pouring in more water, because it is leaking. We will get distracted. This world we live in is kind of crazy and wild. We're focusing a lot on quality leads right now, and getting people who are really passionate to work with us. That's something that I don't want to ever mistake for, go backwards ever again. Because we would, in the early years, like I said, when you're in survival mode, you're really just trying to say, who has money that is willing to give it to me, and I'll do whatever it takes to get it. And we did all kinds of stuff that we had no business doing, for the sole fact that I had a family to feed and take care of, and it was all on me. But now we're at the place where, like, okay, we want to have that mutual respect and mutual understanding of what the values are. And that was something that we started to do really well in 2021. And I want to continue that even more so. Who's in our niche, and who's really passionate about talking with us, understanding what their business is, getting into all of the nitty gritty stuff. I think that's going to be really huge for us in 2022. And the last thing I want to talk about before we end my super long rant about reviewing the year is, how to build. And I think if you don't focus on the foundation, you're really going to be at a place where you're scrambling. And there's a lot of people who believe that, build something really big and then start bringing people on to take different tasks and roles. And that has worked for many people. I know people where it has. They work extremely hard for many hours, for a couple of years, to get it off the ground by themselves, and then they hand off things when it's, like a full-fledged thing that they've done from 0 to 100 themselves. I don't have that in me. I don't know what it is, whether it's age, tiredness, family commitments, choosing which priorities are more important. As much of a quote-unquote workaholic as I am somebody who very much wants and seeks balance. That's why this podcast is called the More Life Podcast. So I find myself in a place where we have to build the foundation, the structure, the walls, the framing first, and then we can grow it. Then we can bring people on. And that's kind of what we modeled this company after. Was we hired people last year when most people would say you have no business hiring one person, let alone compare, if you were looking at the revenue of 2020, you'd be like, okay, that's barely a one person salary. And it's not, you're under the poverty line if you're living in the city of Toronto, which is where I live. That was our gross revenue last year. Why would you start to look to hire somebody in 2021? And my philosophy or understanding of it is, I want to get people who have a little bit of buy-in, because no one's ever going to have as much buy-in as me, a little bit of buy-in, who are willing to hold out for a little bit, because I genuinely believe in the next 18 months, things are going to open up in a bigger way, and the business is going to be growing, and it wouldn't be the right time to start learning about what my mistakes are, my SOPs, or the processes I need to have in place, the training and development I would need to do with a team. I'd rather start with the team first. And if people are willing to see the vision that I have inside my brain and hold on to that for a little bit, and I know not everybody gets all the hours that they wish they could. I can't offer all these positions that's full-time. In fact, none of them are full-time. But if they hold on for just a little bit, and I do my job as best as I can in terms of getting the sales, finding clients, leading the team, and I think this is a definite when, not an if, the floodgates open, the business starts booming, I have everything in place to hold it. I have a ginormous net to hold it, and the opportunity doesn't pass me by. So what does this mean? This means that if you're working in your business, if you're working in your company, if you're working for somebody else's company, what are the systems that you got to build in place? What are the things that you need to start to structure now for your inevitable growth? And if growth is not inevitable, that's also something you need to kind of deconstruct and reconstruct. How do we make our growth inevitable? If we do these systematic things, if we talk to the right consultants, if we talk or read the right books, if we start to implement and simplify our process to this degree, will your business become successful inevitably? For a lot of people, no. Like I said, the degree to your understanding and following the process is the degree of your success, and success is defined by many different things by many different people. So you kind of have to take stock. What are the things that are the big important things? There's an analogy where there's like a jar, and there's big rocks. You put big rocks first. What are the core tenets of your business that you for sure have to have and keep and maintain and grow and nurture? And then you put the medium-sized rocks. Okay, these are the things that would be, essential but not necessary. We can make do without, but it'd be great with. And then you put the tiny rocks, the sand. And those are the things that are the luxuries. Those are the things that are like, oh, we could finally get an assistant or a in-person bookkeeper or whatever. You know what I mean? Like those things where it's like, okay, we can make do with these. These are niceties that make the business operate in a way that's very effective and fluid. And you can take that same principle of the big rocks, the medium-sized rock, the little rock, the sand, and apply it to every single business opportunity or project that you're doing. And you do that in the right order, you probably are going to get to where you want to get to. But it starts with the foundational things. So those things that you're looking at right now, that you're thinking about as you're listening to this, write them down. And then start to deconstruct which habits you'll need to create for either you, your team, your department, the people that work for you. How do we rework this in a way that is trackable? That's once you deconstruct that, that's when you can see okay, here's how we monitor, here's how we execute, here's how we get the deliverables in these smaller things that lead to a bigger thing. Whew, that was a lot. 2021 has been socially almost the same as 2020. We've seen a lot of people still hurting with the pandemic and a lot of people who are trying to get by. But if you're lucky enough, and I really do say lucky because so many people don't have this, you're lucky enough to have a home, a place where you sleep. If you're lucky enough to have a job, part-time, full-time, self-employed, whatever, then I think we have to consider ourselves grateful or lucky or whatever words you want to call it. I call it, being blessed or whatever, right? I consider myself to be blessed to be in an opportunity that I am every day. I would definitely encourage everyone, take some stock into what you want and go for it, because you never know what can happen in the future, and you never know how things can end up. And this is a little bit a snapshot of some of the things that I've been wrestling with over the course of this year and trying to grow something. Growing something from nothing is very, very hard. Building something from scratch is very, very hard. I think about the pyramids all the time. How did they do that? How did they get all those people locked in to do that? How did they get the tools and the resources and the mindset and the plans to do that? It took a lot of sweat and tears. And there has not been a shortage of those two things in my life this year, but I'm super grateful for 2021. And I think 2022 is going to be the beginning of the next phase of me as a husband, father, a man, me as a business owner, a team leader, and I hope nothing but the best for everyone who's listening to this. If you made it this far to the podcast, thank you for supporting, for listening. I hope you learned something out of this. I don't have all the answers. I'm just a guy on the road trying to make it to my destination, and I'm using every tool that I know to use to get there. And I want to bring you guys along for the ride. So if you haven't yet, this is a good time to hit the subscribe button, to follow, all the things, the like, the share. I don't know, poke is gone now from Facebook. Do it. It doesn't matter. Notification bell. We'll see you in 2022, guys. Be blessed, be well, be safe. All right. Bye.